Hello everyone, welcome. It's so good to have you here with me once again. This brings me great joy. Yes, true joy, because every small contribution that you or I receive in our lives is a reason for gratitude. Believe me, this simple change in mindset can transform your life. Do you know why? Because when we learn to value every experience, life becomes lighter and full of meaning. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, overcoming the fear of failure. Understanding the fear of failure, recognizing its source. Let's get straight to the point. Who here hasn't felt that knot in their stomach just at the thought of failing? Whether it's in your career, relationships, or any important decision, it's natural. The fear of failure is something we all face at some point. It's an old friend that whispers in our ear, "What if it goes wrong? What if you fail?" But have you ever wondered where this fear comes from? Often, it stems from the expectations we set for ourselves. It comes from the pressure to be perfect, to prove to the world that we're capable. Society, family, friends, everyone seems to have a standard of what success means. And when we feel we might not reach that standard, fear creeps in. And do you know what's most curious about this? This fear, which seems like a huge monster, is actually in our minds. Most of the time, it's not the failure itself that scares us, but the idea of what it might mean. What if people think I'm a failure? What if I never manage to move forward? It's this kind of thinking that holds us back and stops us from making progress. But I want to tell you something important: you're not alone in this. It's not just you who feels this fear. Great entrepreneurs, artists, spiritual leaders, everyone has been in this situation. The difference is that some have learned to see failure in a different light. And that's what I want to share with you today. So, shall we start changing this perspective? First, let's recognize that fear is part of the journey. We won't ignore it or fight against it. We'll understand it. Because only when we truly understand what we're feeling can we change the way we act. And before we continue, I want to ask a small favor from you. For me to keep up this work and continue bringing more content like this, I need everyone's support. If you could subscribe to the channel, I'd be really grateful. And if you could drop a like right now, that would be amazing, because YouTube measures the relevance of videos through likes and comments. Without your support, YouTube won't share this content with more people, which makes it really hard to keep this project going. So, I'm counting on your support. Now, let's keep moving forward. Redefining failure, a positive perspective. Let's move on. Now that we've talked about recognizing the fear of failure, it's time to turn things around. Do you know the big secret? It's redefining what failure really is. That's right. I invite you now to see failure in a completely new and exciting way. Have you ever thought that failure is actually one of the greatest opportunities for learning? I know, many times it feels like a burden, a problem. But what if I told you that failing is simply a step on the journey towards success? Think of the great minds in history. Thomas Edison, for instance, failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. And he didn't let it bring him down. He used to say that each attempt wasn't a failure, but a discovery of how not to make a light bulb. Amazing, isn't it? The problem is, most of us were taught to believe that failure is the end. As if it's a stamp marking our incapability. But that's a lie. Failure is the beginning of something new. It's a step forward, not backwards. Want a more practical example? Think about when you were learning to ride a bike. How many times did you fall before you managed to ride on your own? Do you even remember how many times you failed? No. You focused on getting up and trying again until you succeeded. That's redefining failure. Do you know what happens when you start to see failure as an opportunity? You free yourself from fear. You stop seeing mistakes as monsters blocking your way and start viewing them as teachers. Yes, failure is the best teacher you can have. It teaches you lessons that no victory could ever provide. It shows you where you need to improve, what to adjust, and prepares you for future challenges. And here's a little secret: no one achieves something great without failing many times along the way. Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling, they all failed repeatedly before reaching success. So, the next time you face an obstacle or a failure, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Now, let's do a quick exercise together. Think of a moment when you failed. It could be something small or big. Now, instead of blaming yourself, ask, what did that moment teach me? How can I grow from this? When you change this perspective, you change everything. Failure turns into a powerful force that drives you forward. So, shall we start practicing this? From today, whenever a failure comes your way, look at it and say, all right, you're my teacher, and I'm ready to learn. In doing so, you begin to build a growth mindset, one that sees mistakes not as the end of the road, but as a new beginning. This is the secret of those who succeed. They aren't people who never fail, they're people who never give up, who learn from every misstep and get back up stronger. And you can do the same. Developing self-compassion, be your own best friend. Let's continue our journey. Now that we've understood what the fear of failure is and started to redefine it, it's time to talk about something fundamental, self-compassion. You know that voice in your head that criticizes you, puts you down, and makes you feel small in the face of your failures. Well, it's time to rein it. Stop for a moment and think with me, if a friend of yours were going through a difficult time, full of fear of failure, how would you speak to them? You would probably support them, offer words of encouragement, and remind them of their worth, right? So, why don't you do the same for yourself? Why is it so hard to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you offer others? That's self-compassion, being your own best friend, especially when you feel like you've failed. It may sound simple, but it's a powerful step in overcoming the fear of failure and transforming how you deal with it. When you treat yourself with compassion, you create a safe space within, where mistakes are allowed and learning is welcomed. And let me tell you something, you don't have to be perfect all the time. This idea of perfection is a trap that keeps us from growing. Perfection is a myth, and the truth is, we are all constantly evolving. So, instead of criticizing yourself every time something doesn't go as planned, be kind to yourself. Remember, you are human, and humans learn from their failures. Now, I want to suggest a little exercise. The next time you face a failure or a mistake, instead of criticizing yourself, stop and take a deep breath. Close your eyes and imagine you're comforting a friend. Say to yourself something like, it's okay. I am learning. I am doing my best, and it's all right to make mistakes. This is part of my growth. Feel the relief this brings. And one more thing, be grateful for your attempts, even if they didn't turn out as you hoped. Every step taken, every effort made, is a victory in itself. Thank yourself for having the courage to try, because trying is, in itself, an act of bravery. Remember that child learning to ride a bike we mentioned earlier? They don't blame themselves for falling. They get up, lean on something or someone nearby, and try again. It's that simplicity of seeing failures as part of the journey that we need to reclaim within ourselves. When you practice self-compassion, you create an internal environment where failure stops being a threat. It becomes a challenge to overcome, an experience to absorb. And you begin to realize that it's not failure that defines you, but how you respond to it. So, from today, choose to be your own best friend. In moments of doubt and fear, treat yourself with the kindness you would offer to those you love. You'll see that the more compassion you have for yourself, the less failure frightens you. Because you'll know, deep down, that no matter what happens, you will be there to support yourself and keep moving forward. Turning failures into valuable lessons. We're making progress. Now that we've talked about self-compassion, let's put into practice the idea of using failures as opportunities for learning. This is where true change begins, when you turn your mistakes into valuable lessons. The first thing you need to do is shift the focus of the situation. When something doesn't go as expected, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask yourself, "What can I learn from this?" This simple change in perspective is powerful. It moves you from the role of a victim to the role of the protagonist in your own story. After all, what really matters isn't the mistake itself, but what you do with it. Let me give you a practical strategy. Whenever you encounter a failure, grab a piece of paper and write down 3 simple questions. First, what happened? Describe the situation without judging yourself. Second, what did I learn from this? Look for the lessons this experience can teach you. And finally, the most important question, what can I do differently next time? This is crucial because it gives you a concrete action plan to move forward with more wisdom. Let's illustrate this with an example. Think of someone who tried to start a business, but it didn't work out. They might have lost money, time, and even felt humiliated. It's a failure, right? But what if they look at this experience as a practical lesson? If they analyze what happened, they might realize that maybe there was a lack of planning, or perhaps the target audience wasn't well identified. They learn, adjust their strategy, and the next time they enter more prepared, with fewer chances of repeating the same mistake. That's how you turn failure into fuel for success. And this applies to any area of life. Relationships, career, spirituality, there is always something to learn when a situation doesn't go as we expected. And do you know what's more interesting? The more you practice this learning exercise, the more prepared you become for future challenges. The fear starts to diminish because you know that, whatever happens, you will draw a lesson from it that will make you stronger. Let's talk a bit about the importance of taking action after learning from failures. Reflecting on what went wrong is great, but it's the action that transforms your life. So, after analyzing a failure and finding the lessons, define a clear action. It could be something simple like seeking more information, practicing a new skill, or even asking for help. The important thing is not to be paralyzed by past experiences. And here's a secret: when you start using failures as learning opportunities, you become a more resilient person. That person who, regardless of what happens, always finds a way to bounce back. This is when the fear of failure loses its grip, because you know that, no matter what, you will emerge stronger and wiser on the other side. So, the next time you face failure, remember, it's not an end, but a beginning. A beginning of new possibilities, new learnings, and a new version of yourself, even more prepared to achieve your dreams. Be curious, ask yourself what this moment has to teach you, and use that learning as a stepping stone for your growth. Putting faith into action, overcoming fear with courage. Now, let's move on to the final, and perhaps the most important, part, faith. Because, at the end of the day, overcoming the fear of failure goes far beyond strategies and mindset shifts. It requires a greater power that comes from within, and this is where faith becomes a transformative force in our lives. Faith is that unwavering trust that, even when everything seems to be falling apart, there is a greater purpose in every situation. It's believing that there is a light guiding our path, even when we can't clearly see what lies ahead. When we place our trust in something greater, we can face the fear of failure with much more courage, knowing that, in the end, everything works together for our good. The Bible gives us many examples and teachings about the importance of maintaining faith in times of difficulty. Let's start with a passage that is like a balm for the heart in moments of failure. In Romans 8 verse 28, we read, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." This means that even our failures are part of a bigger plan. Even when things don't go as planned, God is in control, using every experience, every mistake, as a building block in the construction of our character and journey. Another powerful verse is Joshua 1 verse 9, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." See the strength in that promise. God is with us in every step, every attempt, every mistake. He encourages us to be courageous, not to let the fear of failure paralyze us. With this certainty, we can move towards our dreams, knowing we are not alone. And this is exactly what faith does: it gives us courage. Not the courage of someone who has no fear, but the courage of someone who, despite their fear, trusts they are being guided by a greater purpose. When you surrender to faith, the fear of failure starts to lose its hold on you. You begin to understand that every experience, every difficulty, is there to shape you and prepare you for something even greater. In Proverbs 24 verse 16, we find another inspiring lesson, for though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. This shows us that the righteous, those who live by faith, may fall, may fail many times, but they will always rise again. It is faith that gives us this strength to get up, try again, learn from our mistakes, and keep moving forward. So, how can we put this faith into practice? The first thing is to seek God in prayer. When you are faced with fear, when failure seems like a giant before you, talk to God. Ask for strength, courage, and wisdom. Open your heart and trust that He is taking care of every detail of your life. Another way to strengthen your faith is through reading the Bible. The scriptures are full of stories of men and women who faced failure and rose again through faith. From Moses to David, from Peter to Paul, they all went through moments of falling. And it was their faith in God that made them carry on. Remember, faith is not a guarantee that we won't fail, it's the certainty that even when we do, there is a purpose and a divine hand lifting us up. It is this faith that turns the fear of failure into courage, that gives us the confidence to try again and to see failure as part of the process. So, in the end, put your faith into action. Be certain that God is by your side every step of this journey. And when the fear of failure tries to paralyze you, remember His promises: you are strong, you are courageous, and you are loved. With God by your side, you can overcome any fear and turn every experience into an opportunity for growth and transformation. And in doing so, you not only overcome failure, but become the best version of yourself, full of courage and faith to walk the path that God has prepared for you. We've come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end. It is an honor to have your company on this journey. I sincerely hope this content has touched you and given you a new perspective on how to deal with the fear of failure. Now, if you'll allow me, I'd like to ask a small favor. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, take a moment to do so. That way, you won't miss any new content. And, of course, if you enjoyed what we talked about today, give it a like, because this is how YouTube understands that this content is valuable and can help more people. Your comments are also very valuable to me, so if you can, share your thoughts, leave your feedback, or tell a bit about your experience. It really makes a difference. Once again, my heartfelt thanks for your support and presence. May you go forward with courage and faith. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.